Welcome to Chrono Tales, a place where time, myths, and human nature collide. Here we dive into the forgotten corners of history, the minds of killers, the secrets behind strange events, and the stories too dark to be told anywhere else. Every tale you hear is drawn from the past, from the shadows, and from the people who lived it. So turn down the lights and listen closely. Long before the skyscrapers kissed the sky, and long before the word banker meant power, there was a tribe that carried no weapons, no flag, and no homeland. They wandered through deserts, carrying not gold, but an idea. They called it wisdom, the only currency that could never be stolen, burned, or taxed. Some inherit land, some inherit memory, but a few inherit exile, and they learn to turn it into power. Our story begins in the dust of Babylon. 5 centuries before Christ, Jerusalem had fallen. The once sacred temple, now smoke and ruin. The songs of a nation silenced beneath foreign chains. And yet, in the middle of all that loss, something new was born. They learned that when the ground is taken from you, you must build a kingdom inside your mind. The hands that once plowed the earth began to count, to trade, to write. Knowledge became their weapon. Trade became their shield. And memory, their homeland. The market replaced the field. The word replaced the sword. And the power once born from land was now hidden within thought. From that day forward, their story would no longer be carved in stone, but written on parchment, on contracts, on the walls of the mind. Exile taught them the oldest truth of civilization. When you cannot own land, you must learn to own time. And so they waited. They watched. They listened to the heartbeat of changing empires. Kingdoms rose like waves and crashed like thunder. But this people, this scattered nation, endured from Babylon to Alexandria, from Athens to Rome, from Damascus to Andalusia. They traveled light, carrying only what could not be taken. Faith, language, numbers, stories. Where others built walls, they built bridges. Where others sought to conquer, they sought to understand. In the markets of Athens, in the courts of Cairo, and the golden streets of Cordoba, they became translators between worlds, between East and West, between faith and reason, between the past and the possible. They built invisible cities, not of marble or stone, but of trust and knowledge. To strangers, they were merchants. To kings, they were advisors. To themselves, they were keepers of an ancient covenant, a promise between memory and survival, between knowledge and time. They spoke the languages of rulers and sailors alike. They measured not wealth, but endurance. They understood the rhythm of numbers and turned every border into a bridge. To outsiders, it looked like fortune. To them, it was survival refined into art. They prospered under caliphs and sultans. They guided merchants and princes. They built schools, mapped stars, healed bodies, and preserved the wisdom that empires forgot. When others fought for land, they mastered something far more powerful: the exchange of knowledge. And so the centuries turned. Europe entered its long, dark night. But behind the walls of ghettos, their candles still burned, quietly, defiantly, illuminating pages of law, medicine, mathematics, and faith. Every exile became a new beginning. Every border, another classroom. They were denied homes, yet they built worlds of thought. They were denied names, yet they became legends written in ink. They lost cities, but they gained centuries. And as kingdoms fell, they carried their wisdom across seas, to the Ottoman ports, to the canals of Venice, to the markets of Amsterdam, to the fog-draped streets of London. Each port was a rebirth, each generation a new author of the same eternal book. The story of a people who traded time instead of land. Then came the age of empires. The world discovered oceans, continents, and the invisible currents of global trade. And once again, they were ready. They helped shape the first stock exchanges. They founded the early banks. They connected merchants and monarchs across borders, through faith in numbers. They learned to move value without armies, to move trust across oceans, to move history without ever raising a flag. They turned distance into opportunity, risk into rhythm, and knowledge into the pulse of civilization. By the dawn of the modern world, wisdom had become the greatest wealth, and those who carried it through exile were now its quiet masters. But power always casts a shadow, and shadows always follow light. Envy, fear, suspicion. Once again, the world would test them through persecution, through silence, through fire. Yet even in darkness they wrote. Even in exile they taught. Because beneath every tragedy was the same unbreakable truth that wisdom, once earned, cannot be erased. Not by kings, not by time, not by war. It travels quietly, from one mind to another, like a torch passed through generations. And so the covenant endured. Not a covenant of blood, but of memory. Through centuries of exile and return, they proved one timeless idea: that intelligence itself is migration, that survival is adaptation, and that history belongs to those who learn. In every age, in every empire, they built not monuments but methods, not palaces but principles. And even now, in a world of glowing screens and digital dreams, their ancient covenant remains, whispering the same truth as it did beneath Babylonian skies: that the mind is the only kingdom that can never fall. Empires crumble, currencies fade, but ideas, they survive every exile. Those who learn to trade ideas become the keepers of civilization itself. Because knowledge, unlike gold, multiplies when shared. It is the only treasure that grows by giving. And perhaps that is the greatest wealth of all. Not the gold, not the power, but the endurance, the patience, the courage to build again and again, from nothing but thought. A covenant written not in blood, but in wisdom. Not sealed by kings, but by generations. It is the quiet belief that no matter how far we fall, no matter how many times we are scattered, what we learn remains. And in that, we find eternity. This is the covenant of wisdom, signed not in blood, but in memory, sealed not with gold, but with time.